is circulating among certain political figures. The minister has hired a private investigator to track down the person trying to extort money from him. His spokesperson, Vuyo Mkhize, says police are also investigating.
That is when it became clear that the material that was being used to try to blackmail him or extort money from him had actually been obtained after an illegal interception or hacking of his phone.
Now,
but at this point, maybe let me just clarify that the video, although I'm not at liberty to go into the details of what it contains. Let me just confirm now that it does not contain footage of the minister and his wife. It's only the minister. It's a video that he created for transmission to his wife.
Police Minister Bheki Cele says the killing of eThekwini Municipal Councillor Sbu Maphumulo was well orchestrated. A street camera facing the councillor's home was moved to face a different direction just minutes before he was assassinated. The 32-year-old was gunned down outside his home in Umlazi's V section last Thursday. Tuba Vilane has more.
A befitting ceremony for a hard-working servant of the people. Sbu Maphumulo was assassinated while coming from an ANC meeting last Thursday. It's alleged that he was in his car outside his home when unknown assailants opened fire, killing him on the scene. Family and friends came in their numbers to bid their final goodbyes, and the family had a message for the investigating team.
If at any stage you feel discouraged and fatigued, please continue for the sake of the kids that will grow up without a father.
Mourners also pleaded with government to protect councillors. Reports suggest that Maphumulo had been aware that his life was in danger. His family says a group of alleged protesters came to his house earlier on the evening that he was killed. Police Minister Bheki Cele has told the family that police are hard on the heels of the alleged killers. He says the suspects have started intimidating the investigating officer. Cele believes Maphumulo's killing was well planned.
This one was organized ekhaya la kamashimanelo kune camera ebheke khona ngo-8:23 yasuswa emva kokuthi kwenzekile lokho after an hour yabuya uzositshela wayisusu wayisusela.
Cele says he will soon launch a task team looking into unsolved cases in the province and ensuring they are re-examined. Tuba Vilane, Umlazi.
A high fire danger warning has been issued in the Western Cape in light of runaway blazes in the region. Different parts of the province have been gutted this week, including George and Tulbagh. Currently, George is covered by smoke and ash because of a fire on the Outeniqua Mountains. But authorities say it's not a threat to people and infrastructure. Last year, runaway blazes in Knysna killed 7 people and gutted hundreds of homes. Now, the trial of Pastor Timothy Omotoso has seen South Africans join forces to back the first witness, Cheryl Zondi. The young woman has received support from government, political parties and activists. It's a sharp contrast to another woman who dared speak out against her alleged abuser. Vezikile Kuzwayo is former President Jacob Zuma's rape accuser. She died in 2016. Her life story was later told in the book Kwezi.
We all are quite shocked. It's because of the court environment in South Africa, where a victim is subjected to another trial and another form of abuse, as if she has to be the one who defends or justifies how she ended up being a victim.
This was never more evident
than the alleged rape of activist Fezekile Kuzwayo at the hands of then ANC Deputy President Jacob Zuma in 2005. Her trial was politicized. Her identity had to be concealed due to threats and fears for her safety. Kwezi's life changed forever when she decided to speak out. Kuzwayo's real name was only acknowledged in public after her death. 13 years later, another powerful man is on trial for rape and human trafficking. Pastor Timothy Omotoso is facing 63 charges, including the trafficking of around 30 women. He enjoys massive support from his Jesus Dominion International Church congregation in Durban. Even after his arrest last year, donations to the church reached almost 1 million rand. When his accuser, Cheryl Zondi, spoke out, his supporters were outside the courtroom, threatening her and pledging their support. But it would seem this time the country had learned its lesson.
They want to finish her.
The ANC was among the first group to defend Zondi. High-profile female politicians and women minister in the presidency, Bathabile Dlamini, were in court to back her. They even called for Omotoso's lawyer to be disbarred over his hard line of questioning. Dlamini explained how Zondi was receiving help.
We thank Sitogo for the work she has done, and we are going to plug on the work she has already started. But also, social development in this province is working with NGOs as well as the government. They have councillors that are sitting here to give support to young people.
The Omotoso trial resumes this week. Nomasonto Boe, Johannesburg.
Coming up after the break, residents of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania remain in shock after a man went on a shooting spree at a local synagogue. Welcome back. The DA's internal battles were apparent this week as some councillors threw their weight behind outgoing Mayor Patricia de Lille. The 5 resignations during a council meeting rocked the DA-led municipality. Now the question is what effect those resignations may have, if any. Peladi Setusa finds out.
Democratic Alliance, thank you.
In one fell swoop, the Democratic Alliance caucus lost its chief whip and 4 other councillors this week. The mass resignations came after outgoing Mayor Patricia de Lille delivered her final speech before City Council. The councillors claim that they were fed up with rife racism within the party. But some within the party have labelled their actions as an excuse to support de Lille at all costs.
We have a situation in this party and other parties as well, where instead of people joining the party and become members of the party, then they become members of members. And when you take action against that one particular member, then people then decide to throw their weight behind that individual and come with all sorts of excuses. Those allegations that were made conveniently because people had to come up with excuses.
The DA says it's a pity that some of its councillors staged the walkout, but says this won't upset the balance of powers within the City Council. It'll now look to the IEC to begin a process to replace those who walked out.
The DA will then follow its process of applying the appropriate list that is with the IEC. We just inform the IEC that we have a list, or if we do, adjust our list, that we have vacancies, and those people then get from that list.
Well, the question remains, what exactly is behind these council walkouts?
There's a frustration in the party, whether or not these are people that are loyalists to de Lille, whether or not these are people that feel that their voice has been marginalized. All is not well in the house of the DA. That in a sense that there are different power structures, different bases, everybody's trying to contest power, everyone is trying to capture power.
The DA says the resignations pose no threat to its majority in council and the positions will be filled in due course. Piladi Situsa, Cape Town.
Further afield, Israel's cabinet stood for a moment of silence today to honor the victims of a synagogue shooting in which at least 11 worshippers were killed in Pittsburgh. A gunman yelling, "All Jews must die," stormed the Tree of Life synagogue during Jewish Sabbath services. U.S. President Donald Trump is condemning the attack. Now, Pittsburgh residents are still in shock after yesterday's deadly shooting. The suspect, 46-year-old Robert Bowers, faces 29 charges. Residents spoke about what happened.
About 10 this morning, I was at the house when a family member came by with a man who she had seen him running down the street from the synagogue, but he was nicely dressed. He wasn't dressed in, running clothes. So she asked him if something was wrong, and he said, "There's been a shooting at the synagogue." Now, he said he didn't have his cell phone with him, so he needed to call 911. So she brought him to my house because it was close. So he called 911 from the house. It sickens me because this is a close-knit, neighborhood, and there is no doubt that there are going to be people on that list that I know, who are friends, neighbors, and it's sickening.
Suddenly, with all of these guns and all of this hatred that's been happening in this country, it's horrible. It's just horrible. There's a lot of ways to solve the gun problem, and this country refuses to do it.
Other international news, millions of Brazilians are voting in runoff elections. In the first round earlier this month, presidential frontrunner Jair Bolsonaro won 54% of the vote, while his rival Fernando Haddad got 46%. Opinion polls show that Brazilians who are fed up with corruption and high crime are leaning more towards Bolsonaro. And Leicester City fans have gathered at the club grounds to pay tribute to the club's owner. Hundreds of fans laid shirts, scarves and flowers outside the stadium. The 61-year-old was killed in a helicopter crash after a Premier League match yesterday. The Thai tycoon was among 5 people who were in the helicopter when it burst into flames. The father of 4 helped steer Leicester back into the top position in 2014 before they stunned the sport by becoming England champions. To the break, your weather details, and then this. It's all about saving fuel as students from around the world come up with ways to make it cheaper for you to drive.
Welcome back to the Weather Centre, everyone. After a very hot week in the western parts of the country, cooler air will be reaching the coastline and the adjacent interior on Monday, while in the south it's going to stay extremely hot once again. In that area, there could also be a couple of very isolated thunder showers in the afternoon and early evening. And then after sunset, we expect rain to start falling along parts of the west coast and a bit further inland. That does include Cape Town, Vredendal, as well as the Cape Winelands. In the Northern Cape, many areas will be very hot once again, including Uppington at 41 degrees. A few thunderstorms possible for Carnarvon, but it stays dry in the west where it will be somewhat cooler. Springbok, 26 degrees as your maximum. A far more comfortable day expected for Vredendal, Langebaan and Cape Town, where evening rain is likely. And while it's going to be extremely hot for the interior of the Western Cape, there could also be a few thunder showers toward the Karoo. Similar for some areas in the Eastern Cape, into the 40s for Graaff-Reinet, Somerset, East Adelaide, as well as Bishu and Makanda. And in KwaZulu-Natal, we'll also see some very high temperatures for parts of the interior, but temperatures stay below 30 along the coastline, where it is going to be a very windy afternoon. Morning fog expected for the escarpment areas of Mpumalanga, otherwise clear to partly cloudy for the afternoon. And while there will be some cloud cover in the low-veld areas of Limpopo, a mostly sunny and hot day is expected for the province. Hot and dry weather continuing in the northwest with temperatures reaching the mid-30s, and we'll have a very similar day for the Free State. Bloemfontein, 36 as your high with some cloud, but for the meantime there is no rain expected. And if you were hoping for cooler conditions in Gauteng on Monday, unfortunately that won't be the case, as it's going to be another very hot day in the area. Taking a look at what Tuesday brings to South Africa, and we're going to see a big drop in temperature over the western parts, very hot in KwaZulu-Natal, but there could be a few thunderstorms, and then a big change on Wednesday with lots of cloud and rain along the east coast and the adjacent interior with much lower temperatures and a few thunderstorms onto the Highveld.
And Shell's Eco Marathon is trying to find ways to counter South Africa's high fuel prices. The company hosted an event challenging more than 20 higher education institutions to build fuel-saving cars. Lindo Kulu was at the racetrack and filed this report.
Burning rubber. The sound of screeching brakes and crossing the finish line first. This is what makes up a typical car race. But the Shell Eco Marathon has switched things up by putting fuel efficiency in the front seat.
The purpose of the Shell Eco Marathon is to see who can get the most energy efficient vehicle, and that is what this event is all about. It's not about speed, it is who can go around the track the furthest distance with a 1 liter of equivalent energy, and that is what we have here.
More than 20 higher education institutions across the country participated in the challenge to create these fuel-saving vehicles. While some stuck to using petrols, others were more adventurous.
I think preferably you would want to stop using petrol. I mean, if you look at the battery-powered cars, I think that's the way we'd want to go now. So obviously we're competing in the petrol category, but I think preferably for the future we'd want to move over to battery power.
Everyone should actually have a hydrogen cell car going towards the future. I think it is the way to go.
Shell South Africa says this competition is meant to encourage young people to come up with innovative ways to deal with fuel consumption challenges. The winning school received funding to further improve its inventions and make further inroads into fuel efficiency. Lindokuhle Xulu, Pretoria.
Here's a reminder of our top stories before we go. An X-rated video of Home Affairs Minister Malusi Gigaba causes a stir. He's calling it blackmail and apologizes. Police Minister Bheki Cele says they're close to catching the killers of an ANC councillor who was assassinated in Umlazi. And tributes pour in for the 11 people gunned down at a Pittsburgh synagogue. From me, Shahan Ramkisoon and the rest of the team, good night.